So today I'm going to be talking about two major web application frameworks. These two web application frameworks are Angular and Django. So, web application frameworks. Web application frameworks is a term used to describe the simplification of the development process of web applications. Web application frameworks provide necessary tools and functionalities in order for services to run as smooth as possible. To enable that at the end that the client or customer is happy, or even the user is happy, to make sure that the process is smooth and everything is included and everything to the best quality it can be. Furthermore, a few web application frameworks come with enhanced security, which means users can feel more at ease when using a certain web application. So this could be web application for if it is like a banking site, or if it's a web application that includes personal information, like for users to upload. So it's got that enhanced security to keep that more protected. The two significant, most popular functions of web application frameworks is to work on the server side, so that's the back end, or the client side, which is the front end, depending on what type works best for a certain web application. So there are different types of web application frameworks, such as, like I said before, Django and Angular, but there's also Laravel and Express.js, Flask and ASP.NET. So like what I said before, Django and Angular are going to be discussed further in this presentation. So this is the different qualities of server-side and client-side rendering. Example, server-side has a higher bandwidth, which is during the initial login phase and load. The loading time is significantly a lot faster than the client side. Server-side a lot more simpler due to it being less complex and more traditional. Client side, so the front end, is lower bandwidth usage in requests that come from a user. Significant longer loading time. Due to different requests, it's a lot more complex due to data handling different amount of data. So in this slide, I'm going to be talking about the Angular Web Application Framework. So the Angular is a certain type of web application framework that is open sourced, developed by Google. So Google is very huge, very big, it's very commonly known by a large amount of people. It is a front-end framework that allows developers to build dynamic and interactive web applications. Angular is one of the most popular web application frameworks. It's very user-friendly, has a wide range of qualities such as architecture, runtime performance, and very organized update format. So it's updated regularly with more up-to-date and user-friendly qualities. In addition, Angular has been created with TypeScript, and this is developed by Microsoft, and it is created specifically for the development of bigger applications and translates them to JavaScript. TypeScript offers typing in a more concise syntax than plain JavaScript, which gives you a tool for creating more maintainable code and minimizing bugs. That is referenced by MDN Web Docs on August 2024. And next, I'm going to be talking about specifically whether Angular is server-side rendering or client-side. So Angular is mostly client-side rendering, which means that it develops pages using pieces such as templates and components. So Angular has some main parts that help it show things on your screen without having to ask the server every time. Components, think of these as pieces of a puzzle. There's parts of this web page that Angular can show and update on its own. That's a reference by daily.dev, February 26, client-side, Nimrod grammar. So Angular CLI will build an initial server implementation as mainly client-side rendering. Initial server implementation means that sections such as the setup of the hardware, configuring network settings, and the correct software being installed will be involved. So Angular's implementation approach in creating dynamic web content. So within Angular, this framework uses HTML to create built-in directives. With these built-in directives, these are parts of the DOM elements. So DOM stands for Document Object Model. With the DOM programming interface, this allows users to then copy and reproduce these pages' qualities. So in Angular, a binding creates a dynamic connection between a component's template and its data. This connection ensures that changes to the component's data automatically update the rendered template. Angular.dev, April 2025. So going on to the next slide, I'm going to be talking about the Angular strengths and weaknesses. So the strengths of Angular is that the performance is high quality. It's very good for cross-platform development. It is cost efficient. It's user friendly and it's Google supported. So these are all very big strengths. For example, cost efficient means that more users can use it, and user friendly means that more users can navigate around the Angular web application a lot more with ease, and that will mean that it'll provide user retention to the framework as well. However, there are some weaknesses towards Angular. For example, there are SEO limitations. And SEO limitations means that there is a constant need for maintenance. And it is a long-term strategy and results don't appear straight away. Like it's ongoing work all the time and it's a very competitive field. And then another weakness is its steep learning curve. It's less secure, so it doesn't have that security layer to it like other frameworks, and not support everywhere. So Angular potential use cases, so there are significant different potential use cases of Angular. For example, one of the most popular use cases for Angular is collaborative tools. Within project management, the idea of collaboration is essential, meaning since Angular has responsive UI capabilities, that collaboration can be used over the framework. Furthermore, another potential use case is a single page application. SPAs, so that is single page applications, are mostly built in with Angular, include Google and Gmail. So Angular is widely used for building SPAs, where a single HTML page is dynamically updated based on user interactions without the need for full page reloads. That's by DevOps School, December 5th, 2023 by Ralph Singh. So this is an example of Angular code, so how it's laid out, what it includes. For example, it's got an import in it, and as you'll see further in the presentation, the difference between Angular code and the Django code. For example, Django is a lot more organized compared to this. So moving on to Django. Django is a very user-friendly Python user-friendly process, and it's very efficient and it's very organized. Has a very user-friendly design which allows users to make applications quickly and more efficiently. Furthermore, within Django, security is built in. It helps developers avoid minor mistakes and generates a smoother process. This framework also has a very rapid development, which means users don't have to start the wheel again. And it includes ready-to-use qualities, such as automatically connecting to databases in CRUD operations. So that is create, read, update, and delete. Django is a traditional data-driven website. The web application waits for HTTP requests from the web browser or the client. When a request is received, the application works out what is needed based on the URL. It's by NDN WebDocs, March 2025. So Django server-side rendering versus client-side. Specifically, Django can do both server-side and client-side. However, it's specifically built to render on the server side in its automatic way. In order to use the client-side of Django, the user will have to use Django REST framework specifically. So there are a few steps in order to make the Django server-side. So first, the user would create a Django app, and then the user would configure URLs, and then they would create SSR view, create the SSR template, and creating the SSR template is an example of this image here, and then testing the SSR page to see if there are any tests, if there are any bugs, anything that needs updating in order to make it a lot more better. So the Django's implementation approach in creating dynamic web content. So within the Django's implementation, there are client steps which vary from views to catching. For example, clients views, these are certain Python functions that handle the HTTP requests. They also bring back the data from the database and organizes the data to be ready for the template. Furthermore, models represent the database tables and their fields, making the Django to be able to communicate with the database and noise the data to the client requests. So to define the structure of your database, Django uses models. Models are Python's classes that represent tables, database tables and their relationships, and that's by Python Times, Minty Sanu Mahmood, March 2025. So models in Django is a term used to describe a certain type of Python class that subclasses Django.db.models. Models are a single source of information, your specific data. It involves essential and specific qualities about your data that you're storing. This next slide, I have listed Django strengths and weaknesses. So for example, there are a number of different strengths, such as built-in authentication, and it is security built-in, which is very good, so it makes users a lot more at ease when using the framework because of the security built in there, because there is other frameworks like Angular that doesn't have security built in. It also has a developed ecosystem, that's rapid development. On the other hand, there are a couple of weaknesses within Django. For example, it is not suitable at all for small projects. This is because Django is mainly used for bigger projects. It's also difficult to learn as it is quite complex, and ORM lacks features so not very user-friendly. So Django potential use cases. Similar to Angular, there are a significant amount of different potential use cases. Django is mainly used for data processing and management, specifically online payments. Below is a list of potential use cases. So, for example, e-commerce platforms. Django is commonly used for online e-commerce platforms for online stores in order to manage payments securely due to the security protection layer. Social media applications. Django includes user profiles and interactions, which means users can communicate effectively when a social media platform uses Django. In addition, the security layer means users are a lot more protected. Also, healthcare systems. These systems have personal information such as healthcare records, patient information, data analytics for patients. It's used commonly on this platform. So this is an example of the Django code. As you can see, it's a lot more organized than Angular. For example, the differences between Django and Angular. Angular is front end, whereas Django is back end. Angular is created with TypeScript, Django is made with Python. Angular can be used with smaller projects, but Django is not suitable with smaller projects. Angular has an excellent UX design, whereas Django has better server-side qualities. Django has a much more efficient ecosystem. The Django has been running a lot more time, therefore could be deemed as more popular and known to users. However, similarities, both Angular and Django have very good sense of community support. They both have a steep learning curve, meaning that users typically tend to make the process very quick. Here is a list of references I have used within this presentation.